Some people call me the space cowboy. Some call me the gangster of love. Sorry, I couldn't help myself, but no, nobody calls me anything remotely close to either of those. However, in this video, I did want to do a rig rundown of a pedal board that I designed specifically to create some country and Western inspired music. And specifically, I want to make dark, gritty, grungy, and modern takes on old school cowboy country, spaghetti Western, roots rock, folk rock, and Americana.
This requires very different sounds than I would normally use for the more ambient, shoegaze, and post-rock styles of music I usually like to play. So I decided to dedicate a board specifically for this purpose, and I call it Dust and Decay. You might notice this pedal board is somewhat thematic, both in the color scheme and in the skeletal motifs of death and the afterlife. This began unintentionally when I got the DoD Carcosa and Dead Man Walking fuzz pedals, which I introduced in episode 2, and my Digitech Obscura delay pedal, which I went over in episode 5. I noticed all these pedals had skull motifs, and 2 of them had warm yellow color palettes. So when I became interested in the Game Changer plasma coil pedal, and realized that none of these were actually quite right for my other main pedal board, I knew what I had to do. Create a new unique pedal board just for them, and dedicate it to the specific dark tower sort of sounds I'd like to create. Think Hank Williams and Johnny Cash meet Nick Cave and Jack White. I wanted to force myself to start playing as soon as possible and spend the majority of my time on playing rather than fiddling with pedals. So I decided to actually screw mount the pedals to a wooden board and call it a day. Some people use bike chain links to do this, but rather than find chains and break them apart, I ordered figure 8 hardware fasteners. The pedal board is a 2-level one from SoCal Woodworks on Etsy. It took a while to arrive, but it looks nice, seems durable, and was a very reasonable price. The power supply is an inexpensive Mosky ISO 10, which has worked well to supply all the power I need for the whole board, and it doesn't seem to have any noise issues either. Now let's explore the pedals. I'll be playing all of them with my Dan Electro 56 baritone guitar, which is a suitable choice both because it allows me to show a range from standard guitar tuning down to lower, more bass-driven sounds, but also because it was used by artists like Dwayne Eddy, as well as spaghetti western soundtracks. I didn't mount a tuner on this board because of space constraints and visual reasons, so my first pedal on the chain is the Thorpe FX Fat General Compressor, though I will use a tuner pedal in front of that separately off the board. This parallel optical compressor is an evolution of the Dinosaural OTC-1 and was designed in collaboration with the original creator of that pedal. It's a very nice sounding and high quality pedal and has very little noise, probably less than any other compressor I've used. It can be used in blend mode or switch to juicy mode for an automatic 90% wet blend, with the balance knob serving as volume instead. Up next is The Very Thing by Rob Chapman's Snake Oil Fine Instruments. I knew almost nothing about chappers when I bought this pedal, and I'll be honest when I say that I got it mainly for its looks, specifically to go with this board. However, I did listen to some demos first, and I liked the medium gain growl and grit it could give me that was different in tone between my clean compressor and my dirty fuzz pedals later in the chain. Through most of the tonal knob range, then suddenly opens up and becomes much brighter and more harmonic once the knob is turned to almost the max. I wouldn't pay full price for this pedal, but at the discount rate I paid, I'm pretty satisfied to have another flavor of dirt on the spice rack. The Dead Man Walking by Polish builder Analog Wise is another pedal that initially caught my attention due to its unique looks, with its beautiful rustic but refined wooden casing and etched metal plate face. But then I gave it a listen and it sounds just as good as it looks, and with a reasonable price tag to boot. It's a triple-stage germanium fuzz that has a mellow, warm, gravelly but buttery growl, similar to some tone benders, but also has quite a bit of range that can even veer into staticky, voltage-starved chaos. Let's roll the tone first. Now up to thicker, fatter fuzz. Finally, let's just obliterate the sound into dust. The D&D Carcosa has a lot of similarities with the Dead Man Walking, including the two big gain and volume knobs and smaller tone and bias ones. But Carcosa is a silicon fuzz, and it makes a big difference in the sound. Carcosa can be used as a nice, fairly clean boost. It can also give a rich, somewhat harmonic fuzz that is far crisper and less mellow than the Dead Man Walking. But this pedal has a huge range and a lot of versatility, getting into even more crackling Tesla coil sounds than the Dead Man Walking did. Speaking of Tesla coils, this next pedal is adorned with them. The graphic is literally an image of Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe laboratory, and for good reason. Game Changer Audio's novel plasma pedal amps your 9-volt input signal up to 3,500 volts and then zaps that charge through a tube of xenon gas, sending visible crackles of electricity that look just as cool as they sound. This third-man version, called the Plasma Coil, is a follow-up collaboration with Jack White. Unlike the original Plasma, it doesn't have blend functionality, but instead it does things that are far cooler. It allows you to choose from a variety of momentary effects that either provide a boost or allow you to choose from a variety of octave up, down, or doubling effects. This pedal looks cool, sounds cool, and is super fun to play. It also allows for a pretty huge range of possibilities, not only with the momentary octave effects, but also by being able to control voltage and tone shaping of high and low frequencies. The Digitech Obscura is a digital delay pedal with some old school retro, lo-fi, and analog sounds. For me, it was the perfect balance of providing some variety and versatility in a compact package, while not being too complex or requiring any menu diving. And best of all, it sounds awesome. The analog mode is the most standard of the bunch, but tape mode is my favorite. Lo-fi mode emulates a vintage 8-bit digital delay. Let's dial in some rockabilly-style slapback echo with it. And reverse mode is fully wet and a bit tricky to use, but it's a cool trick to have available. and yes, it does require occasional menu diving, which is the only thing I don't love about it. IK Multimedia is known for their line of Amplitude pedal and amp emulation software, and their X series pedals have taken that technology and put it into physical pedal format. I looked into quite a few different digital multi-modulation pedals, and to be honest, this one simply sounded better than all the others I looked into, including Keeley, Wampler, Boss, GFI, and Strymon. The only other modulation pedal that caught my attention was the Walrus Mako M1, which actually has fewer effects, and the chorus is far better on the X5, but I ended up with the M1 as well because I loved its harmonic tremolo and its lo-fi sounds. Other points for the X5 were that I managed to get a brand new one at a rather low price, and I also sometimes use plugins and VSTs instead of pedals when recording, so it was a real bonus that this comes with the virtual Amplitude version as well. This pedal has so many features it could really warrant its own video, but to sum up, it has stereo, MIDI, EQ controls, it can even be used as a recording interface through its USB, and it has 16 types of effects with many parameters for each, as well as a momentary X mode alteration. There are 3 types of chorus, univibe, 3 phasers, plus 2 flangers, rotary, tremolo, and specific models emulating Fox, Foot Phaser, Electric Mistress, Small Stone, and other classics. Although the pedal sounds good in stereo, the rest of my board is running in mono, so I'll be playing in that. I'll start with some basic tremolo, since that's the oldest guitar effect and one of the most frequently incorporated into spaghetti western and country sounds. Associated with country music, it's an effect I like, and I might incorporate it for some airy, ethereal, and psychedelic effects. This one is modeled after the MXR Phase 100. Is another effect I wouldn't normally apply for the dark western sounds I plan to make, but this dark and detuned preset called Bad lends itself very nicely to a grungy, melancholy vibe. Some unique sounds not always found on multi-modulation pedals are its rhythmic step and slicing modes, both for tremolo-like slicing as well as for step filtering. This slicer preset seems fitting, with a galloping sort of rhythm. Let's see how it does with the very thing feeding some gritty overdrive into it. Spend time altering the rate or patterns. Instead, I'm just going to play to the existing presets and see how that goes. Now let's alter that tone and make it even more industrial by feeding some Carcosa fuzz into it. Roche's Afterlife is a bit expensive for what it is because it's a bit of a one-trick pony, but it's a trick I like. This is a fairly standard reverb, but it also includes a momentary foot switch for going into self-oscillating feedback loop territory. I've had other pedals that do this, including When the Sun Explodes and Caroline Meteor, but what's interesting about this one is that the feedback swells don't actually increase the volume. They seem to be clipped so that the tone Morrison changes and evaporates, but the actual signal level and volume don't swell out of control, meaning you can keep the effect stomped for as long as you'd like and don't have to worry about blowing your eardrums or your speakers out. Let's hear it first with some juicy compressor on. Now let's use the very thing for some dirt and add a nice airy morph into oscillation at the end. Finally, we come crashing into the joy of American sound, a budget pedal that hits way above its price tag. This is an amp in a box type of pedal, simulating a variety of Fender-style sounds, and it might seem strange to have a gritty drive and tone-shaping tool like this at the end of the chain, but I did it for a few reasons. 1. I am ampless, so when I'm running direct input or into my PA, this will provide emulation for some old-school Fender sounds suitable for this style of music. 2. It allows me to have dirt after reverb, which provides a lot of versatility, including lush walls of sound or noise. And finally, I can still run this before reverb as well, because I've designed this board to also sometimes feed into an off-board surfy bass spring reverb, especially for spaghetti western sounds. The standard blonde tweed style settings produce a very nice, smooth, but slightly crunchy sound that I'll probably use often. But I also stumbled upon some much darker, harder tones. This one lent itself nicely to a grunge feel. And when I first had it set, I didn't realize the very thing was still on, with gain stacking that created a rather intense metal-like high gain sound. However, I also found you can achieve pretty high gain sounds like this without any need for a second pedal. Adjusting the voice and EQ controls also allowed for some excellent blues rock sort of sounds.
Now I'm going to record a song using the Dust and Decay pedalboard. In this case, I'm starting with AI-generated lyrics that were created by ChatGPT when prompted to create a Nick Cave-style song called Grotesque Mockery. I'll be adding my own music to accompany the lyrics, and in keeping with the theme but also to explore more sonic territories, I decided to use some new instruments, including the quijada, which is a Peruvian folk instrument that's literally the jawbone of a donkey that's been cleaned and dried to allow the teeth to rattle in their sockets. There's a few ways to play this, including rubbing a stick along its tooth ridges, but the main mechanism of playing it is to strike the wide part of the jaw, causing the teeth to rattle in their sockets. Another instrument I'll be using is a cigar box guitar. This is an old American folk instrument that came around in the 1800s as a very cost-effective, cheap way to create a musical instrument out of discarded parts such as screws, nails, and the wooden boxes that cigars came in. In this case, I have an electric jack pickup in it, and this one came from Fickle Frets on Etsy. It's actually a fretless guitar, even though there's frets markings burned into the neck. It is played with a bottleneck-style glass slide that goes in your finger and can actually slide up and down with ease since there are no frets in this guitar.
Before I record record the song, I want to showcase that this board is actually fairly versatile and could work well for far more styles of music than the dust and decay I plan to focus on. For example, here's a melodic 80s pop style sound I stumbled upon using Obscura delay, X-Vibe chorus, and Afterlife reverb. Roots rock song I wanted to make. I started with the lyrics created by ChatGPT artificial intelligence, and I used this as a springboard to decide on the mood and instruments used. Since the theme is dark and brooding, I wanted a melancholy key to play it in, and since I recently made a song in E minor, I decided to change it up and go with D minor progression for this one. I decided to play around on my D'Angelico Gramercy concert series acoustic-electric guitar to figure out a general chord progression, and I basically came up with D minor, G minor, A minor, which is a basic 1-4-5 progression, but it still seemed to be missing something, so I also added an E minor. And I honestly don't know enough about music theory to know how this really fits in, but it sounded right. And I kept it clean using the fat general compressor instead of any dirt, but fed it into the Afterlife reverb to allow for feedback swell to transition into the main song, in which I shift to heavy strummed rhythm using the very thing for some grit, plus Obscura lo-fi delay and the Afterlife to maintain the murky reverb. While this worked well for the basic simplistic core of the song, I really wanted to plug in my cigar box guitar and add some complexity and accents to the mix, as well as a bridge in which I dropped the strumming to bring the slide guitar sound to the forefront. I also really wanted to incorporate the quijada, but I found that when I used it in addition to the already dirty strumming and slide guitar tracks, plus vocals, it just became too complex and didn't allow the other instruments to stand out. So I saved the quijada strumming and striking for the final verses to add in a little bit of variety when I dropped the cigar box sounds from the mix. I used my Nady PCM100 condenser mic for both the quijada and the vocals, which I also processed slightly using Isotope Nectar 3 elements to add a small bit of compression and reverb. Finally, I decided to master the whole mix using Isotope Ozone 9 elements, which I set to the country pop preset, but I had to manually adjust the frequency curve slightly because the cigar box guitar and the vocals were clashing too much at one part of the song.
Shadow of the gallows, I see your face in the crowd, a grotesque mockery of beauty, a twisted shroud, grotesque mockery of all that's pure and true, a dance with death and damnation in the depths of hell with you. Cackle as I hang here by the road, a symphony of laughter, a cruel joke, grotesque mockery of all that's pure and true, a dance with death and damnation in the depths of hell with you. Even in this darkness, I'll find a way to see through the grotesque mockery to the beauty that will be. Grotesque mockery of all that's pure and true. A dance with definition in the depths of hell with you. So let them mock and laugh as I take my final breath. For in death there is redemption and eternal sweet, sweet rest.